Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our seminar and part of our TAPAS seminar series, Tackling Air Pollution at School. As you know, this is a series that takes place every Thursday at this time, and so welcome to those of you who are regulars, and to anyone who's new, welcome to you too. My name is Paul Linden. I'm the principal investigator on the TAPAS project. As you know, TAPAS is a network. We're very keen to encourage as many people as possible to participate in our activities. And so we're very pleased to see you here today. Just the usual housekeeping rules. If this program is being recorded, so if you don't want to appear, please keep your camera off and your microphone. And in any case, please mute yourself during the course of the presentation. Put questions to our speakers in the chat, please, and I will pass them on to the speakers at the end of their presentation. So it's a great pleasure today to welcome Maria Valmartin and Amy Barnes, who are going to do a double act for us today. Amy Barnes is a lecturer at public health at the University of Sheffield with specific interests in politics, participation and health equity, and in government and civil society action to address wider determinants of health. And Maria Valmartin is an atmospheric scientist and UKRI future leader at the University of Sheffield with research interests in air pollution interactions between the atmosphere, biosphere and climate change mitigation. And they're both involved in the design and evaluation of the first school streets trialled in Sheffield, and that's what they're going to talk about. So it's a great pleasure to have you both here today. And so I'm going to just hand over now to Maria, who's going to kick off and let you take it away. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you so much for the introduction. And actually, thank you so much for the TAPAS network for giving us, Amy and I, the opportunity to talk about the first trial that we had in Sheffield on school streets, actually. So we didn't work together. So we did all this work with the Whole House and Carter Knoll School Sustainable Travel and Road Safety, what is called the STARS group, and also many other parents that were involved, actually, from the schools in this project. I'm just guessing that you can see the presentation, right? Yes.
Yeah,
Amy,
that's fine.
Can
yes,
you see
yes.
the? Okay,
no,
okay. Because okay, perfect. So, I mean, we had many seminars through the TAPAS network about why air quality is important at the schools. But I just by looking at quickly on the media, and in the last few months, actually, there had been published a few headlines about a school air quality.
We've just lost your sound, Maria.
It says that the host mute me. Did I say something wrong? Anyway, I'm back out on mute. Yeah, thank you so much. Well, just what I was saying is that you look at the media, you can see many headings actually related with schools and air pollution and safety. For example, a few months ago, there was an article at The Guardian highlighting that a quarter of UK children attend schools where air pollution is over the World Health Organization limit. The Transport for London recently published research that shows that walking and cycling will remove 25% of the cars during the day in London. And then it's not just about air quality and safety, but also about keeping the children active. And the Times published a couple of articles last year about encouraging the parents to walk the parents to help the children to walk and cycle to schools, and also by highlighting the importance of exercise for the children to learn. So, I mean, this is all what it brings me to a school street scheme, which is what it says is a proactive solution for school communities to create a safer and healthier environment. And this is what it consists of, is to close the road from traffic vehicles to closer to the gates at drop-off and pick-up times. And the objective actually are kind of like highlighted in the previous slides. One of the objectives is to reduce volume of traffic near the schools, improve air quality at the schools, playgrounds, and increase the number of pupils that walk and cycle to school. So this is not, I mean, even this seems like a simple scheme, it really requires the involvement of the local communities, the authorities, and also the school staff. And as a scientist, actually offers many opportunities for citizen science as well. So just to give you a little bit of history of school streets in the UK, and all this data come from the schoolstreets.org. The first school streets were created in Italy in 1989. And actually you can see in this website, in the school streets, there is a map where the school streets are planned or they have already been active in the UK. But the first UK school street was introduced in Scotland in 2015. And today there are about 650 schemes implemented in the UK, but I would say that 500 of those are in London. At the time of our work, which was done in 2019, there were plans for 5 trials in Sheffield. And I zoom in on this map, and you can see where in yellow means that the schools were, the school streets were planning, where they were going to be planned in Sheffield. And Carternal Junior and Hull House Infant School is the schools where we had the first school streets trial in Sheffield. So a little bit more about the school streets and the Carternal and Hull House schools. I have here a map that shows the location of the schools. So if you are familiar with Sheffield, we have here the Sheffield City Centre. So the schools are located on the south part of the city. There is this main road, it's called Abedel Road, that brings pretty much all the traffic from the south of Sheffield, one of the main roads to the Sheffield city centre, and the schools are nearby this main road. There are 2 different schools, even though they are from the same part of the same confederation, but they have 2 different buildings. And they are connected by a small road that is called Bannerdale Road. I mean, this is not, they're connected. There is a road that goes closer to these 2 schools. So the school street actually for our schools consisted of closing this road, tiny road, this Bannerdale Road at drop-off times. So 1 hour from 8:15 a.m. to 9:15 a.m. and also 1 hour during pickup time. And that happened in 2019, in November 2019, the 3rd week of November, and it coincided actually with the Road Safety Week. So one of the things that we knew is that Bannerdale Road, this tiny little road here, is a busy cut through where drivers are trying to avoid to use Abedel Road to get to the city centre, and they want to drive through Netherate to avoid traffic congestion in Abedel Road. Another thing about the school is that 70% of the children live directly within the catchment area. So that means that the maximum walking distance that they are living is 15 to 20 minutes. And I have here a sign that the city council put around the school's roads 2 or 3 weeks before the school street, the road closure, to warn the residents about this event. A little bit about air quality in Sheffield. I'm having here, this is the Sheffield city limit. Sheffield, the urban area, which is this main area here, is classified as an air quality management area because of high levels of nitrogen dioxide and PM10. So what I have here is the annual average of NO2 in micrograms per cubic meter, and this is our simulation done by Said Munir and colleagues at the Urban Flow Observatory here at model. So it gives you very high concentrations of NO2. So you can see where the hotspots are in Sheffield actually are. They're pretty much are related with main road traffic and also with the railway here that is passing close to our school. So we have here the location of our schools, the Carternal and Hull House schools. So a little bit more about Sheffield air quality or air pollution. About 500 people die prematurely every year because of air pollution, and these are numbers given by the Sheffield City Council. And then by looking at the unearthed a Greenpeace map, the one that puts the location of the schools and nurseries closer to main roads, we have about 20 nurseries and schools that are located in less than 150 meters from a polluted road. So one of the things that really make Carter Knoll and Hull House schools to have the first school trial implemented was because the schools were part of the Mode Shift Stars program, which this is a national accreditation program that promotes active travel. It's not just about for schools, it's also for business and also communities, and is created and run by the Department of Transport. I think it started in 2008, and by the time we work in this project, there were about 3,500 schools that had joined this accreditation program. Probably by 2021 now, we have more schools that are part of this program. So the STARS group are Carter Knoll and Hull House schools comprise school staff, governors, and parents, and working with the Mode Shift officers, we really implemented a range of tasks to improve a school environment. So one of the things that we did was we placed banners outside the schools highlighting the importance of road safety, also dangerous parking. We also increased promotion of active travel with the WOW travel tracker, which I will explain what it is later on. We also publish regular newsletters. We also install a green barrier with ivy and potinia around the Carter Knoll Junior School playground. We also produce a 5-meter walk zone map and distribute that to the parents, and also encourage park and stride, which means that we encourage parents to park away from the school and walk at least 5 minutes to school. And then we also organize and evaluate the School Street Week in collaboration with the Sheffield City Council. So I have here some pictures of the activities that we did with the STARS group. So we had here the potinia and the ivy green barrier. We also had these banners that highlights how dangerous it is to park on the zigzag lanes. Although we have these banners at the school gate, you can see that there are some cars still parking in front of the gate. With the Sheffield City Council, we had these island signs at the school, and in any case, even though we have these signs, we still see some cars parking and idling near the school. And this is an example of the walk zone map that we created in collaboration with the Mode Shift officer and distribute with the parents. So one thing that we did is that we wanted to know what the parents felt about the road closure. So what we learned from the school is that parents typically do not respond to traditional email questionnaires and surveys. So we designed these engaging surveys that are very interactive. So this one was pre-COVID, where parents could enter the school. So we used 2 events during the afternoon, and we had these surveys on a whiteboard display. So we just asked the parents if they could just take a sticker and answer quick questions about how they felt about clean air, safety around the schools, and also what type of support actions they would like to see the school to do that. And these type of surveys really were very successful. We had 70 parents that participated in their survey. We have here some, you can see some of the stickers. And what we learned actually is that parents were very concerned about how clean the air was around the schools. The parents were concerned about road safety, and they were very supportive for the school to stop traffic around the schools at drop-off and pick-up time. Also promote walking and cycling, and also stopping parking from the parents between the two schools, so in Bannerden Road. So I mean, this one gives the support to the school and the STARS group to go ahead and implement the road closure for a week. So the other thing that we did is that we surveyed the traffic around the schools. So we designed these surveys where it was very easy to do, because you just need to just click and check what type of car was coming. And we had many parents that volunteered to do these surveys. And we had parents going to drop off and pick up times at Bannerdale Road during half term and also during school days. And we also surveyed the traffic flow at Cartenor Road before and during road closure week. So we had 26 surveys complete, and you can see here that some parents and also some of the children were involved in surveying the traffic count. So what we learned actually was that Bannerdale Road had 30% more traffic at drop-off and pickup times during school days than during half term. And you can see here in this graph that shows the vehicles per 15 minutes during half term at drop-off and compared to the school days at drop-off and pickup times. What we also learned is that actually the traffic that we were getting in Bannerdale Road was private cars, and the rest were pretty much 5% were taxis, and there were little commercial vehicles and buses. The other thing that we learned is that the traffic at Cartenor Road was similar during and before the road closure. So that means that there was there was another road closer to the schools that weren't affected by the road closure. And I add here a note for myself, because I wanted to highlight that the Sheffield City Council also did a traffic monitoring, and way more sophisticated than parents just taking notes in sort of just adding counts in a piece of paper. But we requested that those data, and the City Council were unable to share those for us for some reason. But you just don't need to count cars, really. These are some pictures that we took during half term, and also compared to what we see every day at drop-off or pick-up times. So you can see that during half term, Bannerdale Road has hardly any traffic, whereas during a school day, we have almost like, it feels like a zoo. It's very congested traffic and very difficult for the traffic to flow through Bannerdale Road. The other thing that we did is that we monitor air quality, and we work with the Urban Flow Observatory. They install a EQMS sensor a few weeks before the school trial, and we can have a picture here of the EQMS. At that time, one of the challenges that we had with the school was to get a permit to install an outdoor plug. So, but Urban Flow Observatory just did that, really solved the problem by installing a solar panel, so allow us to measure air quality during the school streets. But finally we got a permit, so now we have the EQMS power to the power line actually of the schools. So the EQMS measures continuously PM 2.5, PM 10, NO2, as well as other pollutants like ozone and nitric oxide. And we also measure with EQMS some meteorological parameters like temperature, relative humidity, etc. So for this school street evaluation, we analyzed data for 2 months, from November to almost the end of December. And of course, we included the school street week. And one of the first things that we found is that there is Cartenor playground has a systemic nitrogen dioxide problem with traffic pollution. And we can see that with I'm showing here the diurnal and nitric dioxide levels during a weekday. So at the time that we did the study, we were comparing the data with the 2005 World Health Organization guidelines. So that's why I have here the annual limit compared to the NO2 data. But you can see that actually where the NO2 data levels increase just before drop off. So at 7 a.m. goes up, then the levels go down again. And then before 3 p.m. where the pickup time starts, we start having large increases of NO2 at the school. And so if you compare now with the new World Health Organization guidelines, actually, which those are they are quality standards to protect human and children, human health, can see that the levels that we are having at the schools are actually worrisome. For PM2.5, we don't have that clear diurnal variability because PM2.5, as we know, is that it depends on many other sources like foodstuffs, and it's also very dependent on meteorological conditions. But what we did is we look at also the daily PM2.5 levels. Again, this is for the 2 months, almost 2 months data that we had. And here we had the previous, the 24-hour World Health Organization air quality standard to protect human health. So we see that we had many days at the school that the levels of PM2.5 at the playground was higher than what it was recommended by WHO. Now, if we look at with the new standard, which at 10, which I think my lines move slightly in the presentation, we have that pretty much for those 2 months, 50% of the days, we had levels of PM2.5 higher than what is recommended. But what happened during the school street week? Actually, unexpectedly, the PM2.5 and PM10 were higher during the road closure week than during the school days, and NO2 remain pretty much the same. And I have here a figure that shows, that compares the data that we collected during the road open, during the school streets, road open, school days, normal school days, road closure, and also we added the weekend as a reference. This is for PM2.5, PM10, and you can see that NO2 pretty much remain similar in these 3 different categories. We had a few ideas, and what happened during the road closure week is that it coincides with this nice weather that we get during this winter that is dry and very cold. So it was perfect for the children to bike and walk to school, but it wasn't that good for removing air pollution closer to the ground. I mean, these events, these winter events, they have high pressure system. It's a high pressure system, so there is little mixing in the atmosphere, and then there is low wind. So pretty much pollution remain stagnant closer to the ground. What we also learned in terms of PM2.5 is that there are other pollution sources, and Netherage, where the neighborhood where the school is located, is very, wood stoves are very popular. Was also that week was very cold, so we think that some of the PM2.5 measurements that we were gathering during the school street week were affected by wood stoves. We also have an allotment across the road, so some of the PM2.5 data during the weekend especially could have been affected by the garden fires. And I'm showing that here. This is the road closure during drop-off, pickup compared to other times during the day. And you can see this is for this is for the road closure, and this is the road open and in the weekend. We can see that especially during drop-off, the levels of PM2.5 reach almost, I mean, they were 35 micrograms per cubic meter on an average. So that means that all these PM2.5 were accumulated during the nighttime. And this is what we were recording early during the day at the school. So the other thing that we did is that we look at the data from the WOW travel tracker, which is an interactive software that actually records how the children get to school. And this is part of the Mode Shift program, and there is a sort of like a reward. So if the children that go to school walking or using bicycles and scooters, they get a badge. So we were able to analyze 13 weeks of data, this active data. And so what I'm showing here is that pretty much 70% actually of the children at the school have an active travel. They reach school either walking, we can see that in blue, or with cycling or with the scooters. And so this is actually a high baseline for the schools. I'm highlighting here the week 9, which it was the road closure week, and we can see that actually 80% of the children went to school with walking or biking. So we increased the number of children that use an active method for an active travel to school. But again, after the road closure, we went back again, and we got again a baseline of 70% of the children being active in the way that they go to school. And I'm going to leave this to Amy now, that she's going to talk more about what we learned from the parents, the children, and the local residents.
Thanks, Maria. So to complement the kind of survey, the Engaging Fun survey right at the start, we also tried to get feedback from parents, local residents and children after the school street had happened, or during, right at the end, and then the following couple of weeks. And this involved more kind of traditional engagement by the schools, so the head teacher sending out a kind of email survey, a questionnaire, or asking for views. The STARS group also sought informal feedback and noted that down, and the school governors, one of the school governors went in to talk to the children as well in the school. So some of this, what we found, really emphasised what we'd found right at the start in terms of the support and agreement on the need for action. And a lot of people expressed their kind of, that doing the school street really demonstrated that children and their well-being was being prioritised, and children themselves actually kind of spoke about their sense of fun and play, being able to use the road in a completely different way. So they enjoy riding their bikes and scooters and doing tricks. And then as we got on the slide here, some of them said they celebrated what was now a kind of empty community space, dancing they were home and walking 12 abreast down the road, and would like it to happen again. Oh, sorry, I've got a fire alarm that's just fire alarm test that's just going off here, so I'll just pause for a second. Apologies about that, everyone. So we also monitored public available social media, and we've got some examples here of positive feedback from parents in the school. I've got at the top there. Oh, we can just go back. Sorry, the image on the left there. But there were obviously frustrations as well that were expressed. You've got images at the bottom here on Carternole Road, which is the road that Maria was talking about, which became parked up as people were confused as to whether they could turn left or right when they got further along the road. So frustrations were expressed about journeys being delayed, people being late, deliveries being made on time. So there was a real mix of perspectives. And some people really raised the importance of the visible support that the school streets scheme had from the council and also the council's contractors. So they helped man the closure and came and visited the school on more than one occasion. I think we had an MP and local councillors, and that kind of symbolic and visible support was actually really important for many of the parents who'd been involved in carrying out some of the research associated with this, and kind of giving us a sense of motivation, I think. So I think on the next slide, if you can move on, I've just got some examples of some of the feedback that we got. I won't go through them in detail. These are also in our full report, which we've got linked to at the end of the slides. But it just kind of emphasizes that how closing the street, even just for 1 week, was felt as something that was felt really different, and felt like, as that comment says at the top, was literally a breath of fresh air. So if we can go on to the next slide, I think we're coming towards summing up, and I suppose reflecting a bit more broadly on what myself and Maria and also the STARS group took from the experience. And I suppose I wanted to start off by saying that this wasn't a funded research project. It was carried out on the back of goodwill. So myself and Maria, although we work at the university, we're also parents of children at the school. and there was no funding attached to doing any of this activity. So the air quality monitors or anything, they were all leveraged through relationships or existing activity that was going on. And I think that really highlights that one of our first takeaways that we put at the top here, that there certainly is local support for safe and healthy school streets. And I'm sure that the area that we worked in is not unusual. There is kind of widespread support out there for taking forms of local action. And I suppose a key challenge, I think, is finding ways to take advantage of that and strengthen it, find ways to bracket onto people's existing enthusiasm, knowledge, experience, and really do more. People, I think what we reflected on was people, need to be engaged in order for things like school streets to take place. They need to be reached out, they need to be listened to, so that the plans that are developed together and issues can be discussed all at once. And I think we probably could have done better at that. I think we'd all probably agree with that in the group. And there was certainly some learning as to how we might better engage in the future. So kind of moving on to the second point there, is that we learned that, as Maria's already suggested, introducing school streets is not actually, it seems a simple thing. I thought it would be really simple before I got involved to shut a school, shut the road, and why can't you do that and every day? But it actually involves a lot of resources, a lot of capacity to plan it and carry it out. And it really only was possible through the involvement of a range of different people within the schools, so from the head teachers to teachers, to the children and parents themselves, and also the council and the contractors, as we've already mentioned, to kind of man the barriers, to put up, to make sure people are all aware of things, and to kind of manage what's a real change to people's mobility patterns during that week, and to deal in the relationship side of things with people's frustrations as well. And we've got here kind of expect teething problems. I think what we've really learned is that actually that's probably normal, and that will happen in any place, because what we're all obviously talking about is quite a significant change to people's routines and practices. This was obviously for just a week, but if schemes are going to take place for longer, then we're talking about quite a substantive change to how people normally behave and act. The third thing that came out, we've got here that it creates a new community space with many potential outcomes. So I work in public health. I'm not an air quality specialist, and we started off this process and journey thinking very much around the air quality. But for me, what's become really apparent, I know that we mentioned things like road safety and children's physical activity at the start as well, that these are all really, really important outcomes to track and capture, but there's also the kind of the softer relational side of things as well, the children's play and recreation and families and parents being able to walk along the street, as you can see here on the image that we've got in front of you, talking and chatting, and maybe talking to different people that you normally would in a neighbourhood. So it's kind of it created a space, albeit in our area, for a very, very short period of time. And I suppose from a public health perspective, I feel that there's a value of taking kind of public health approach, so that if other people are introducing school streets, they're not just evaluated on the basis of air quality. All of these kind of other public health outcomes need to be taken into account, which then raises issues around what you value more or less. As we've mentioned and got on the slide here at point 4, we don't really know whether doing something like this has had an impact on air quality because of various different issues that Maria's talked about. However, there are all these other outcomes that are, you need to kind of value against any air quality changes. So I think it just really struck me that taking that kind of wider approach to thinking about school streets is really important. And that also means, if we're thinking beyond air quality, moving to partnership ways of working and integrated action within a local area, but also kind of within local councils. So we're not just talking about the air quality team being involved, or the school streets team, transport planners, and other departments in a kind of a local governance context need to be involved. I think that's all I wanted to say on that point. Maria, did you want to add anything just at this point in terms of our summary takeaways?
No, fine.
Great, just we're out of time. So I'll just, if we could move on to the next slide, in terms of what is next. So unfortunately, because of the location of our schools near to main arterial roads in Sheffield, there's been a decision taken locally that a permanent school street scheme, at least at this moment in time, is too difficult in terms of capacity or ability to implement. But the Sheffield City Council have committed to implement formal schemes, and I think they are underway. Maria knows much more detail about this, and I think I've seen that we've got Graham Turnbull with us today, and he knows much more about these schemes as well. So again, in terms of takeaways, there are real kind of difficulties, I think, in terms of evaluating and resourcing these schemes. As I said, the work that we did wasn't funded. It was carried out quite quickly and through mobilising the resources that we had. And I think there are questions raised about the capacities, given that there's been a lot of disinvestment in local government structures in England over the last kind of 10-year period. It raises real issues around their capacity to support, prioritise and kind of carry out school streets schemes, and engage at the same time in a way that would really support and mobilise and get people to change their actions and behaviours. So we know that there does seem to be some kind of national appetite to do more in relation to this. The school streets is mentioned in the 10-point plan for a green industrial revolution, but I think myself and Maria would like to hear from yourselves, if you've got any views as to what this means in terms of there actually being kind of stronger political support and funding from the government to actually carry out these schemes, not just as projects in terms of time limited things, but that kind of recurrent funding that needs to be invested in terms of local areas to carry this out in terms of changing the way that places really work. We're really aware that there are, as I think mentioned all the way through, that there are engaged citizens and groups who are starting to organise initiatives around schools themselves. Maria's got some examples that if we've got time to share of some really interesting ideas and in Sheffield. And I guess it's, where does change then, for me, where does that kind of change come from? Is public health researcher, do I invest most time? Should I be kind of working with and supporting that kind of bottom-up grassroots initiatives to take action in air quality and to create healthy places and communities, or advocating for change in terms of policy and resourcing for local areas? So I think I'll stop there. Maria, did you want to just add some details there about the innovative schemes that are happening in Sheffield?
No, well, I think we can keep going, and if there's time, we can maybe talk about parents trying to organizing these bike routes to school or so with the audience. So okay, let's keep going. I think, yeah.
Okay, super. So I think we've got Sophia with us. Then we can move to the next slide. I was just going to hand over just for a couple of minutes to Sophia, who's a new PhD researcher who's just started work with us in Sheffield, and she's working on a PhD project that is funded by the White Rose Studentship Network, which is a collaboration between the University of Sheffield, York and Leeds, and is going to be working as well as part of the early years and prevention theme of the Yorkshire and Humber Applied Research Collaboration, which is a collaborative programme focused on public health and addressing inequalities. So I'll just hand over to you, Sophia, if that's all right.
Yeah, thank you very much, Amy. So hello, yes, I'm Sophia, and I've just started my PhD at the University of Sheffield. I recognise some of your faces from other Tapas events, so it's really good to see you again and have this opportunity to connect. And if you're interested in my work, then please get in touch. So my project, supported by my supervisors, Dr. Amy Barnes, Dr. Kirsty Pringle, and Professor Rosie McEacham. So the focus of my research, if you go on to the next slide, is air quality in schools. And the title of my project specifically is Improvement is in the Air, using pupil citizen scientists to co-produce, implement and evaluate theory-based interventions to improve air quality at the school gate. Now, I was drawn to this PhD primarily for the funky title, but also because of my background in community development, where I'd often work with groups to try and empower them to come up with solutions to the problems they're facing in their own areas. And obviously this project is all about empowering citizen scientists to take the problem of air pollution and come up with solutions themselves and make a difference to their environment. So if you go on to the next slide. So as I said, I've just started my PhD, but so far I've been kind of researching what key stakeholders have been up to, like parents, groups, charities and local authorities. And as Amy was saying, I'd like to work on a way of being able to approach and evaluate the school streets intervention from a public health perspective. And I'm hoping to do that by creating a kind of developmental evaluative research design, and that's kind of embedding participatory action. And then, as well as what Amy was saying, just kind of discovering the co-benefits such as, perceptions of increased safety, increased opportunities to play, and also increased well-being with opportunities for active travel. So if you're interested, is it the next slide that has my details on? So it'd be great if you could get in touch. Thank you.
Thanks, Sophia. I think we've come to the end of our talk now. We've just got some links here if anyone wanted to read any more about the outputs that the STARS group at the school have been involved in. And I think we're both happy to take any questions. I know there's probably been some talk in the chat, which we haven't been able to look at or respond to while we've been talking, but very happy to respond to anything.
So Maria and Amy, thank you so much. A very fascinating talk. And there is a lot of fascinating stuff going on in the chat, which I'm trying to keep up with at the same time and failing. But quite a lot of not actually questions, but there is one interesting question right at the beginning, which is that you talked about this park and stride system, and there are two questions related to that. So was it the case that parents just dropped off their children as normal but further away from the school, and if so, what did the residents where they were parking further away from the school think about that?
So that's a good question, and we thought about it actually within the STARS group. And one of the things that we did is that there is a big supermarket near the school within the 5 meters walk distance. So we talked to the supermarket and asked for permission for the parents to park in their parking lot for during drop-off and pick-up time. So we got also support from using the parking space in this big supermarket. But we didn't hear any complaints of the residents around the 5 minutes perimeter. So yeah. As far as I know, yeah.
Thank you. There's quite a lot of discussion in the chat about the fact that you didn't measure a significant, well, in fact, the air quality appeared to be worse when the street was closed than when it was open, which is of course a bit of a disappointment in some sense. And I guess, that, I mean, as is made in the chat, this is partly because, you just close it for 1 week and there's lots of things happening that influence air quality. And I just wonder what you think about what you think you would need to do in order to really sort of pin down any changes in air quality as a result of this process, or even is that the key factor? I mean, some people are talking here about safety issues, children not being safer, not having traffic around the schools and so on.
I mean, yeah, it's not about air pollution, but our hope was that the city council was going to grant us another school street or a permanent school street, so we could have monitor the air quality with a longer time. And we raised that comment to the city council. And the other thing that I didn't mention is that, yes, we got these 5 days with this weather that really make all the air pollution not being dispersed as we thought. But we also had cars that reroute through the other part of Cardinal Road. So we also had traffic congestion near the school, not from Bannerell Road, but from another road that was closer to the school. So it could have been a mixture of both, but it was very hard for us to determine which one contributed to more for air pollution. But I think the key thing is to continue monitoring and to have, with all these new school streets that are being implemented in Sheffield and other parts of the UK, to be able to measure air quality at the playground and see if they make a difference.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, I mean, doing something for longer would obviously be ideal, because you can kind of make more of a long-term assessment on how it reshapes behaviour and mobility patterns. But yeah, there obviously wasn't the resource and ability to do that at the time. And I think it just comes back again to that. It comes back again for one thing to me about, you know, the multiple different outcomes and how you then judge the success of something like a school street. So, you know, how do you value air quality outcomes in relation to road safety, children's physical activity, and, you know, all those other aspects of kind of community well-being. And it really depends on who's making the decision then about, you know, what success looks like. I know I get the sense in Sheffield at the minute, and I don't know whether this is replicated in other places across the country, that there's a kind of an enthusiasm to implement school streets, but it's not necessarily clear what success does look like. I don't think there is a kind of common understanding as to how, you know, is the primary outcome air quality, or is it all of these things? And I think that's quite important to you know, understand a bit more, and that's, you know, the thing to engage people about. And I suppose for me as well, doing something like a school street, it has I'm a qualitative researcher, so I'm when I talk about numbers, my hands get sweaty. But, you know, I'm interested in the kind of, if you're thinking about changing people's behaviour, something symbolic, and like doing a school street, shutting a road. You know, how does it have a ripple effect then on how people see and the message that they receive about what's normal and what's expected? And I think tracking these kinds of things is actually really important as well. Yeah,
thank you. A couple of other questions. One from Mike Holland says, do you have any information on the financial cost and the human resource of the scheme that you described? And he's sort of wondering how far government investment would go in practice.
I think I remember talking to the senior transport officer, and he was mentioning something about £30,000. Am I correct, or am I just?
I don't know anything about the financials in terms of what it meant for the council. I don't know. I mean, I know that they used the contractor that they have to do the kind of streets work in the city. And I don't know whether that was on goodwill and whether they costed, you know, the time or how that was calculated. You know, and I don't know whether there are obviously different ways in which you can carry out a scheme like this. You can put in permanent barriers, or you can have the people manning it, and do you then kind of cost volunteers time or not, and the resources that go around it. So I don't think we have a good idea about the cost actually. And
a question from Doug Booker saying, did you encounter any hesitancy from the school in taking air quality measurements in case stigmatized the area as dirty?
We never, I'll say something, Maria, and then you can probably chip in. So that was never kind of discussed explicitly, but I think there is that concern. I do, because it could put people off sending their children there, and you kind of create this message that this is an unhealthy place. And I think that's also a concern when like city councils are introducing measures to address things as well, and the message that sends. I don't know whether there's anything you want to add to that, Maria.
My impression is that the school wants to know, but yes, there is sort of like they are careful to see how this data becomes that public. I mean, how public they become.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We've noticed that sensitivity. We've been doing some measurements in schools as part of our COVID work, and there is obviously a concern that they don't want to be identified as an unhealthy place. So some sensitivity is needed for that. I don't know if this is appropriate, but there's a question for you, Sophia. So I'm going to ask it anyway, and I hope you might answer it. This is from Sarah West, who says, could you say a little more about what you mean by developmental evaluation? Is this relating to participants or the public helping define outcomes?
Yes, thank you. I was just writing in the chat my answer, so thanks. It's a lot quicker just to say it in person, isn't it? So yes, a developmental evaluation is kind of used in social innovations, and it kind of embeds that process of evaluation throughout a project cycle, but it is using the beliefs of key stakeholders in that process and having that participatory action throughout. So yes, I think that's my understanding so far, obviously, as a newbie to the area.
Thank you. Okay, well, I think that's been a very interesting presentation and discussion, and I'd like to thank Amy and Maria in particular for taking us through their work, and it's fascinating, and thank you very much. And like many other people have said in the chat, we wish Sophia good luck with her PhD. It was exciting to start on a new project, and so good luck with that. Just for your, and I think Sophie will put this in the chat, next week the speaker is Chris Griffiths, who's Professor of Primary Care at the Wolfson Institute for Population Health at Queen Mary University in London. He's going to talk about the impacts of London's ultra low emission zone on children's health and development. We hope you'll come to that. I understand that Chris will actually be at COP26 next week, so he's going to be giving us a presentation from a highly topical place, so we really appreciate him taking the time to do that. And so thank you all for attending, and thank you again to Amy and Maria and for your presentation today, and I wish everyone a good week until we meet again next week. So thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thank you.